Why your to-do list is making you anxious. Picture this. It's Sunday evening. You sit down with a clean notebook or a fresh screen, and you write out everything you need to do this week. The list takes shape. It looks manageable. There's something genuinely satisfying about the act of it. All the floating, unresolved things in your head now organized into neat lines, waiting to be addressed. You feel ready, in control, like this week is going to be different. By Wednesday, the list is longer than when you started. A few things have been crossed off, but more have been added. Some items from last week are still there, slightly more uncomfortable now for having waited. By Friday, the list has started to feel less like a tool, and more like an accusation. A running record of everything you said you'd do and didn't. The question worth asking is, why does a system explicitly designed to reduce stress so reliably produce more of it? The original logic of to-do lists is sound. Writing things down offloads cognitive burden. It takes the items you've been holding in active memory and moves them somewhere external, freeing up mental space for the actual work. The relief you feel when you write something down is real. It's the brain releasing its grip on a task it no longer has to remember, because now it's recorded somewhere. For a while, this works. A short, focused list can be genuinely useful, a clear signal of what needs to happen today, something to orient the morning, a small structure to work inside. But something shifts. The list grows. Items that were added with urgency last week are still sitting there, now adjacent to newer, equally urgent additions. Some things have been on the list so long they've developed a kind of permanence, you no longer even really see them. They're just there. The way furniture is just there. The list stops being a tool for doing. It becomes a mirror for not doing. And every time you open it, every time you scroll past the same items again, you're not reading tasks. You're reading evidence against yourself. There's a concept in psychology called the Zygarnik effect, named after the Soviet psychologist Bluma Zygarnik, who observed in the 1920s that people remember interrupted or unfinished tasks better than completed ones. The brain keeps unfinished business in a kind of active holding pattern, a low-level background tension that persists until the task is resolved. This is useful in small doses. It's why you remember to go back and finish something you were interrupted on. But it becomes a problem at scale. A to-do list doesn't close these loops. It makes them visible, which is different. The tension created by an unfinished task doesn't disappear when you write the task down. The writing creates temporary relief, a sense that the loop has been acknowledged. But the brain, on some level, knows the task isn't done. The tension returns. Quieter, but persistent. Now multiply that across 15, 20, 30 items. Each one is an open loop generating its own background signal. The brain is running all of them simultaneously, not consciously, not urgently, but continuously. This is the specific kind of fatigue that a long to-do list produces. Not the fatigue of having done too much. The fatigue of holding too much. Of carrying a weight that never quite gets set down. There's a second layer to this that goes beyond cognitive load. Over time, a to-do list becomes more than a task manager. It accumulates meaning it was never meant to carry. Items that have been on the list for a week carry one kind of weight. Items that have been there for a month carry another. Items that have been there since sometime last year have become something else entirely. Not tasks. Evidence. Call the doctor. Finish the draft. Deal with that thing from November. Each one carries a quiet, persistent accusation. Not from anyone else. From you. The accumulation of undone things stops reading as a backlog and starts reading as a character assessment. You're the kind of person who says they'll do things and then doesn't. The list knows. This is why deleting an item from a long to-do list can feel strangely difficult, even items you know you're never going to do. Deleting feels like admitting failure, like giving up, even when the honest thing would be to acknowledge that this was never going to happen, and let it go. The anxiety isn't primarily about the tasks themselves. Most of them aren't that hard. The anxiety is about what the undone tasks say about you. And as long as the list is open, the verdict is pending. Part of the problem is structural. A to-do list is an open system. There is no natural limit on what can go into it. Every time a new responsibility appears, every time you think of something that needs doing, every time someone asks you for something, it goes on the list. The list is always accepting new inputs. Completions, on the other hand, require time, energy, focus, and often the right conditions. These are finite resources. The additions are not governed by the same constraints. So by design, not by failure, a to-do list tends to grow faster than it shrinks. There's also a specific cognitive bias at work when we add things to lists, optimism about future capacity. When you write something down, you're implicitly imagining a future version of yourself who will have time and energy and mental space to do it. That version always seems more available than the present version. That version isn't carrying today's meetings and this afternoon's interruptions and the general weight of a life already in motion. But future you inherits all of that. Future you shows up to the list already depleted, already behind, with the same list plus everything that's been added since. The optimism that generated the addition was real. The capacity it assumed was not. A list is a collection of intentions. A plan is a decision about when and how those intentions become actions. These are not the same thing. And confusing them is at the root of most to-do list anxiety. Most to-do lists are collections of intentions with no plan attached. The items exist, but they don't exist in time. There's no specific day assigned to them, no specific window, no condition under which they've been committed to. They simply wait. And things that wait without a specific time assigned to them don't get done. They don't move forward. They just accumulate, each day slightly more overdue, slightly more heavy with the awareness that they're still there. Writing something on a list is not the same as deciding to do it. It's closer to deciding to decide later. And the accumulation of deferred decisions is one of the more reliable ways to generate low-grade chronic stress. On any given day, when you look at your list and decide what to work on, one pattern tends to dominate. The most urgent items displace the most important ones. Urgent items have deadlines. They have social pressure attached. Someone is waiting for them, or a consequence is visible and imminent. They produce discomfort if ignored, so they get done. Important items, the ones that compound over time, that build toward something, that don't have a deadline but matter quietly and significantly, rarely have urgency attached. They can almost always be pushed to tomorrow, and then to the day after. The list holds them without complaint. The to-do list, as a structure, doesn't distinguish between urgent and important. Everything sits at the same level with equal visual weight. In that flat equality, urgency always wins, not because you're lazy or undisciplined, but because urgency comes with immediate consequences and importance rarely does. Over time, the list becomes a quiet record of what got sacrificed to what was immediately pressing. The discomfort that a long, unmanageable to-do list produces is not irrational. It's not a problem with your psychology. It's information. It's telling you that there's a gap between what you're tracking and what you're actually able to do. It's telling you that decisions are being deferred. Not, I'll do this on Thursday at 2 p.m., but I'll do this eventually. And eventually is not a plan. It's a way of avoiding the discomfort of either committing or letting go. It's also telling you something subtler, that the list has started functioning as a performance of productivity rather than a tool for it. Writing things down gives a brief sense of having done something. The act of capturing creates just enough relief to reduce the urgency of actually deciding. And so the list grows, and the relief is purchased repeatedly, and the actual decisions keep not getting made. The anxiety is pressure looking for resolution. It's the accumulated weight of open loops, deferred decisions, and tasks that have aged from intentions into judgments. The list is not the problem. The way it's being used is. A list that works is a short list. Not an exhaustive inventory of everything you could theoretically do, but a deliberate, edited selection of what you're actually committing to doing. These are different documents. And treating them as the same one is where the trouble starts. Think of it as two separate systems. The first is a capture system, a place where everything goes. New tasks, ideas, obligations, things you don't want to forget. Can be long. Can be messy. This job is only to hold things, not to drive action. The second is an action system, a short, deliberately chosen list of what you're actually working on. And critically, everything on it is time-bound. Not just, write the report, but, write the report, Thursday morning, 9 to 11. If an item doesn't have a specific when attached to it, it doesn't belong on the action list. It belongs back in capture, waiting until you can honestly assign it a time. One of the most useful things you can do with an old, overgrown to-do list is go through it slowly and ask, for each item, do I actually intend to do this? Not, should I do this? Not, would it be good to do this? Not, would the best version of me do this? Do I, the actual me with the actual life I have in the actual weeks ahead, actually intend to do this? Some items will be easy. They can go immediately. Others will resist. Deleting them will feel like giving up, like admitting something unflattering about yourself. But an item that has been on your list for 3 months with no movement is not waiting to be done. It is waiting to be decided about. And the decision has two honest options. Assign it a specific time and do it, or acknowledge that it isn't going to happen and remove it. Both are legitimate. What isn't legitimate and what generates the most sustained anxiety is leaving it in permanent deferral, where it contributes to the weight of the list without ever resolving. Deleting something is not failure. It's an honest decision. And honest decisions, even uncomfortable ones, produce relief. Permanent deferral produces only the ongoing accumulation of things that were never quite addressed. The to-do list is one of the most common tools people use to manage their lives. It's also one of the most reliable sources of low-grade, persistent anxiety. Not because the tasks are too hard. Not because the person using the list is disorganized or undisciplined. But because the list is structurally designed to grow, to hold unresolved decisions, and to become, over time, a record of falling short rather than a tool for moving forward. The fix isn't a better productivity system. It isn't a new app or a different format. It's a clearer, more honest relationship with what you're actually committing to and what you're not. A short list, honestly made, is more useful than a long list that covers everything. A decision, even the decision to not do something, produces less anxiety than permanent deferral. And the relief of a to-do list that reflects your real life and your real capacity is a different thing entirely from the constant low-level pressure of one that doesn't. The list was supposed to help. Used differently, it still can.